Ladies and gentlemen, over the last few months, a passionate debate has gripped the population in the United Kingdom about the 10 greatest Britons. The idea was launched a few months ago by the BBC, and a television series ran over a number of weeks, portraying various historical figures from a list of 100 British historical figures that the BBC had put together itself. This list included politicians, scientists, entertainers, monarchs, artists, inventors, and so on. The people on the list had to come from the British Isles, and when I say the British Isles, that means the UK and Ireland, or they had to have been foreigners who had lived in the British Isles for a long time and who had played a significant part in the life and culture and history of the British Isles. So there were 100 figures originally proposed by the BBC. There were a number of television shows depicting these figures, and eventually a top 10 shortlist emerged by public vote. Finally, the public voted on the top 10 on the shortlist and put them into order, ranking them from 1 to 10. Well, at the finish, 1.5 million votes were cast, either by telephone or by email. The idea of having a top 10 of all the people who've ever lived in the British Isles was criticised by some observers and by some members of the general public. Some said that the idea was very populist. It was just a piece of entertainment, and it actually reflected a very narrow view of history. Others said that such a comparison was simply absurd, because you can only make a comparison if you compare like with like. So it's too hard to compare a politician to a scientist, for instance. And then there were also certain questions about the criteria. How on earth, it was said, can anyone judge greatness as a concept? Who can decide who has been the greatest Briton? Others, on the other hand, occupied a different camp, a different school of thought, and believed that it was a very good idea because it stimulated a national debate, it stimulated argument and discussion, and it encouraged people to learn history and to be aware of history. So two opposing views of the whole idea. As you're listening to this, you might be wondering who won. Well, in first place, it was Winston Churchill, the leader of Britain during the Second World War. In second place, it was the Victorian engineer called Brunel, who was responsible for huge constructions, ships, bridges, and so on. And in third place, I'll only give you the top 3, otherwise it would take too long. In third place, it was Diana, the Princess of Wales. Well, the voting is over, but the debate, which was triggered off by this idea, continues. Many letters have been sent to the BBC about the outcome of the vote. And further complaints were made. For instance, the Irish, the Scots, and the Welsh said that they had been underrepresented right from the start, and that in the original list of 100 figures from the BBC, there simply weren't enough of their nationality. Others said that there'd been very few blacks or Indians or Chinese from our ethnic minorities in the original 100 list. And others said that the original list had mostly had conservative politicians on it, and there hadn't been enough radical left-wingers proposed. Well, it seems that it's impossible to please everyone at the same time, as if we didn't know that already. But in any case, the vote was democratic. The majority voted for Winston Churchill as the greatest ever Briton. Perhaps we should remember, though, that the whole exercise was also supposed to be fun. I myself did not vote, and I must say I would need quite a lot of time if I were to choose my top 10 Britons, but Princess Diana would not be amongst them. Well, perhaps next time I'm here with you, I can hear from one of you who your top 10 Vietnamese citizens would be.